Okay, so there's an underutilized skill that many people in the fitness space are not putting nearly enough time and attention on, and I rarely see any content about this. And so I think this is a very important piece of the puzzle when it comes to hypertrophy or strength training or anything. And most of the advice you typically hear is focus on progressive overload, add more weight, add more sets, do more, etc. And it's not necessarily wrong. But at the same time, it's also why a lot of people plateau. And you hit a certain point where the bottleneck, like you add so much weight, now there's a bottleneck to that. And then you feel like, okay, now I need to add more sets and do more work, but I also don't want to be in the gym for 3 hours at a time. And I get it. And the whole goal that we're after here is adaptation, right? But the thing about the body is it doesn't just adapt to the weight you put on the bar. The body does not know math wise, okay, this is 185 as opposed to 175 last week, right? So it's very complicated, but the skill that nobody talks about that underlies all of this is it's proprioception, right? It's your ability to sense where your body is through space, how it's moving, and what muscles are actually taking the load or where the tension is actually being applied within the body. And so without it, you're just kind of throwing weight around. With it, you can start to bias the right muscles and keep bar paths efficient, understand resistance profiles, and know how your body is moving against an external force. Because the more tension that you can do there, the more force you can apply at the joint, the better. And then that's going to allow you to be able to stack volume safely over time and de-risk injury. And so me personally, I learned this the hard way while I was powerlifting. So every time that, say, like my body weight changed and I was going up in weight and I was going from, 190 all the way up to 220, my leverage has changed too. And so I had to relearn how to feel where the maximal force was going into the bar in case of like a bench press or a squat or a deadlift. And that awareness, though, and me understanding that intuitively, now I can put it into words, but intuitively, that's why I advanced consistently over time. And when you had one lifter and myself that started at the same time, why I ended up so much further ahead, because I was always observing how I was moving through space, where force was being applied, what my leverages were, and being able to adequately put that force into the external resistance. So in this video, I want to break down proprioception, what it is, why it's the foundation of strength and muscle growth, and how you can actually train it. Because once you are able to develop this skill, every rep that you do stops being random and it starts actually compounding into long-term results. So let's get into it. Okay, as I mentioned, proprioception, also known as knowing where the fuck your body is in space, knowing how it's moving, understanding where it's at, and what these external forces known as weights are, how it's acting against your body, and how you are applying force directly back into that, right? So you see this nice little elephant on a soccer ball, pretty impressive, if I say so myself, but it's important to understand and know the mechanism. So proprioception, it's the awareness of your body as it moves through space. Think of it like your internal GPS, all right? It's knowing where your body's at and where it's going ultimately. And so this is where the whole concept of mind-muscle connection kind of comes from. Like, I don't think this is how it makes sense for me anyway. I don't think this is what necessarily everybody thinks of, but this is kind of the idea. So mind-muscle connection doesn't necessarily mean more muscle growth, but what it does mean is because you can know what is happening in a muscle, where you can feel the tension, and maybe what adjustments you need to make to an exercise, it can better help you elicit the proper tension against the muscle. It can help you execute better on a particular exercise. And so you'll see with these two little stick figures here, good proprioception cause you to be able to lift things without injury. Bad proprioception and understanding where your body's at and where stress is being applied means injury. The name of the game here, don't get injured. If you're not injured, you can make gains longer. Your timeline becomes infinite. All right? And so the thing about proprioception, it is a trainable skill set. For hypertrophy, this means you can target your tension better. For long-term adaptation, It's your ability to notice the leverage is changing in your body as you make gains, as you get stronger, right? And for longevity, this means your injury risk is going to go down because you are better going to be able to tell, oh crap, if I keep doing this, I'm probably in this specific way, I am probably going to get hurt. And so if you can understand that and start to do it, then your injury risk is going to go down and you can start to make adjustments in your training so that even if you do have some tweaks and aches and pains, you can work around it. You can do exercises that don't hurt, that still work the same muscles. Like one that I think of is overhead press. Some people it hurts the shit out of their shoulders. Well, you know what that means? Instead of just doing overhead press, we can go do a cable lateral raise. And then we can combine that with maybe some reverse pec deck type of work for the rear delts. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and just understanding this means you can actually train it. And so the thing that I like to think about whenever it comes to proprioception is it's kind of the foundation of programming, right? So if you think about it, you have zero idea of how your body is moving through space at any time. You're not going to be able to execute exercises effectively. And execution is the number one thing that you need to focus on whenever you are in the gym and your entire goal is strength or hypertrophy, right? How are you executing an exercise? Are you doing it at a high level? And does every single rep count? Because if you can make every rep count, then every subsequent rep is going to count, which means you are maximizing your ability to make gains. So proprioception is the foundation here. And then you stack your programming on top of it so that you can start to get more efficient gains and not have to be in the gym for 3 hours and not do 5-6 sets, which sounds like hell if you ask me. But instead, you can do 1 to 2 sets to 1 rep in reserve or all the way to failure, get more out of it, and then enjoy your life. And recovery is going to be a lot more manageable because your overall fatigue is not going to be as high. And then at the top of the pyramid, it's just gains. Because after all, that's what we're after here, right? So know how your body is actually moving through space. And so how can you train it? This is where I think things like tempo and pauses are very, very valuable. While I was powerlifting, I remember I did a shit ton of tempo reps and paused reps. And the value that came from it, one, was being comfortable in various positions. How do you get comfortable in various positions? Well, the brain has to know, hey, I am somewhat safe here, or I can control the weight in this particular position. Therefore, I'm good. And I can apply more force now, and I feel more safe to do so. Injuries, if you think about it, they happen when an athlete or somebody is in a position that their brain is picking up as not being used to and applying too much force in that particular position. Now, that's an overbroad simplification. I'm not a doctor. I am not a professional in that sense, but just generally speaking, that's a way that I think about it and why, what helps me understand that. Now, tempos and pauses help a lot. Okay. Now, the whole time under tension, that doesn't mean more muscle growth, at least based on the literature. It doesn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean that. But what it does do is it forces you to actually think about, okay, where am I at in the middle of this rep? Am I maintaining control? Where is the tension being applied? Where do I feel it the most? In the pause position, it's going to allow you to keep tension in those areas so that you can then further focus. So that's one way. Number 2, filming your lifts, actually seeing what it felt like versus what you actually see. This is a big one whenever it comes to training to lower RIRs or closer to failure. So a lot of people will think oh my God, I was 1 rep shy of failure. You look at their sets, none of their reps ever slowed down, right? You have to go for the involuntary slowing of your reps, meaning you are applying maximal force into the weight and it is slowing down significantly. And so filming lifts is going to be able to help you see that. And sometimes you're like, God, that was hard. And then you realize oh, I guess I had 4 or 5 probably left in the tank after that set. Thus, your brain, you're going to start picking these things up and then you're going to increase your quote pain threshold or your discomfort threshold, which all in all is a great thing for people. And then the third is going to be a lot of unilateral exercises. So while I was powerlifting, I did a lot of single leg and one-arm work. And what it helped with is it certainly helped me with my ability, yes, to stay balanced, but also I was better able to understand how I operate on one leg. And if I can operate well on one, I can probably operate just as good on two. Right. So just all these little things go in. And then from a longevity standpoint, like how old people, like elderly people die a very large percentage of the time from falling. If you can keep this skill throughout your life, you're going to increase the chances that you're not going to fall, or you're going to be able to help pick yourself back up in old age too. So big idea here is these are the ways that you can train it. These are the ways that you can understand how your body is moving through space. And I think it's such an under talked about thing, is being able just to execute properly by knowing how you're moving. It's a skill set in itself. And so I think if everybody can start to do this, they will see more gains. Your training will be more effective, and you're going to look sexy. We all want to look sexy, right? So you're going to be able to lift with lower injury risk. You're going to have more efficient gains, and you're going to be able to adapt even longer. And so I wanted to give one more example of just another idea of how this can work. So I like to use the lat pull down a lot, because a lot of people, they want to grow big lats. They'll go super heavy on lat pull downs, and they'll wonder why their lats don't grow that much. One, could it be bad genetics? Yes. Most of the time, though, it's not. And so if you understand what you're trying to do, the tension you're trying to apply, this is how it works. So if you understand what the lat's primary job to do is, it is to stabilize the lumbar spine. So what a lot of people do in a lat pull down is they tend to flare up this way, right? And they start to pull like this. So if you can see from the side, they're pulling here. What does that work? Well, in that position, that is working more rear delts and rhomboids. But if you can understand where your body is in space, and you know that your lat's primary job is to stabilize your lumbar spine, then you'll know if you can stack your rib cage down and still keep all of your tension, your arms up here, and drive the elbows down and almost try to like touch them together behind your back, you are going to apply the force in the right spot to the lats. And that's just one example of how this can be dramatically helpful for you. So if that made sense to you, let me know in the comments. Happy to continue the conversation. If this helped, I'd love to hear it. If it didn't help and it was useless, still tell me. Either way, I'm here to try to help. So thanks.